Hey guys, so yeah, this is me giving you my late night review of Eden Zero Episode 3, and I gotta say, it is great to be back because, yeah, let's just say the first 2 week break, it was kind of killing me a bit. I'm not gonna lie, like I wanted to get back to reviewing this series again. Um, but so I guess jumping right into it, I guess the first thing to talk about is we get introduced to Rebecca's rival, Labilia Christie. And yeah, if I'm being completely honest, she is, in my opinion, the biggest weakness of the series. Because to this day, even as a manga reader and 140 chapters into the series, I'm still trying to figure out why Mashima created this character. I mean, the pretty much best guess I've got is that Labilia is meant to serve as a contrast to show just how much of a kind and compassionate person Rebecca is by comparison. But even by that logic, Labilia just comes across as a caricature of your typical mean girl archetype. And grant and what and I'm saying that in the sense where what you pretty much see of Labilia in this episode is what you're going to more or less get. And granted, I will be fair in saying she does get a vulnerable moment later on in the series, but as far as the anime is concerned, it won't be until a potential season 2 if that happens. And even then her moments only serve to emphasize that pretty much contrast. So it's one of those things where I'm forced to ask, outside of being a motivator for Rebecca's goal of being the greatest beekeeper, just what is the reason for this character's existence? And maybe I'm being the dumbass that maybe being the dumbass that I am, someone can tell me like a different theory they have of the case and just what they think her reason in the story is. But the way I see it now is whatever Mashima's plans are, if he has any if he has any for Labilia, he has to give me something to work with, some kind of hook that can at least get me on board with her. Because even now where I am in the manga, there's just nothing to her that interests me. She is quite literally a background character with a personality match. So like Mashima has to do something pretty big right now in order to get me to like her, even on a base level. Like it's not even just like, and it's not even a thing about hatred. It's just she's not an interesting character. Like there's nothing about her that kind of like that even makes you say I like the character. Like even remotely even small like the character. No, she's just kind of there. She exists as a foil for Rebecca, but that's it. Um, all that being said, though, this episode pretty much marks the end of the first arc of the series, and we've now essentially entered the second one, the Norma arc, which I'm not too surprised by this, as the intro arc was really just only 3 chapters long. But what I am surprised by is just the amount of ground we've already covered in this newest arc. I mean, in a way, we only covered 1 chapter, but pretty much 1 chapter is kind of equal to already being like pretty much like 20% done, because this arc isn't that much longer either compared to the intro arc. I think it's like from my understanding, from my recollection, it's from chapter 4 to 11. So yeah, we've already covered like pretty much 2 chapters of this arc already. And just and just from us covering like 2 chapters so quickly already, the end of the chapter, we basically as anyone who's watched this episode yet, we basically meet someone who, as everyone knows from the opening, is going to be a mainstay character, a younger version of Professor Weisz Steiner, which for anyone who's even the most minor of has the bit of most minor of confusion right now about what's going on, then let me just say outright from here, one of the biggest underlying themes that you're going to find about this series is time, space, and just its many varying concepts that in some way or another play a role in the story. So with this introduction and that major ending of that took place 20,000 years, like 200,000, 20,000 years into the future, uh, Yeah, let's just say all this is like the first big indicator of that. And again, as far as that ending with the 20,000 years into the future, uh, let's just say as far as the specifics go on that, I'll address that in next week's episode because there, let's just say just based on like the first appearance of a certain character after in next week's episode, it's something I do need to kind of talk about a little bit. Um, but overall, I guess the one thing I can say is that, and the one thing to kind of keep in the back of your minds when it comes to how time works in this series, is that time doesn't exactly work in the most linear sense. Like it isn't a linear like past, present, future kind of thing. There's many different concepts that we're dealing with here. The one thing that did throw me for a loop though with the introduction of younger Weisz in this episode is the voice. I don't know why, but I was not expecting young Weiss's voice to be that deep. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe something a little more like teenage year. I don't know, but young adult teenage. But yeah, just it being that voice, I was not expecting that at all. Um, the only thing that's a little weird to me in this episode is that Norma itself, as like a planet in the anime, is designed with a much flatter surface than how it looks in the manga, where it had a much more rigid and uneven surface, more in line with the idea of the Earth ether storm it experiences. And it's obviously through pretty much those Earth ether storms that we see in this episode that we also do explore what's essentially going to be the power system in this world from here on. And how it's all based around an energy source simply known as ether. And the interesting thing about ether as a energy source, just kind of revisiting it and whatnot, is that I kind of it makes me realize that pretty much Majima had pretty much taken a lot of inspiration from pretty much two different sources, but both from the same series. With when it came to the ether gear abilities, it makes me realize that Majima pretty much took a lot of inspiration from pretty much Fairy Tail's base magic system. But when it comes to everything else involving around just basic ether power, like for instance the happy blasters and all that, I, I it's in with like technology that utilizes ether and whatnot that I get much more of an influence from Edelis's concept of magic. So it is kind of cool how Mashima had taken from these two separate sources, you could say, and just kind of and pretty much rolled them into Eden Zero's sort of base system. Um, and yeah, obviously one of the bigger things to talk about is how we always see Elsie like pretty much showing up at the shooting starlight looking for Shiki, and considering how how it happened months after Shiki and Rebecca talking about how they were looking for a new ship. I'm amazed I was able to see even that tiny little bit of setup. I mean, that to me has been the biggest thing about revisiting Eden Zero in the anime is looking at all these little minor details and events that I didn't think much of at the time, but now just now just they add up a lot more now, even more so how Elsie knows Shiki. Like that one was just like an obvious thing that was staring me right in the goddamn face, and I didn't think much about it. Like, holy crap. Uh, with that being said, one thing I do kind of like that I didn't fully appreciate in the manga is how, on concept, shooting Starlight as a guild is just a complete rejection of the guild concept that Mashima had established in Fairy Tail. And don't get me wrong, and I mean that in the sense of the bonds formed of the guild if they are left and how a lot of the bonds that are formed in this guild, so to speak, are completely left up to the individual and not so much the group dynamic, the latter of which still being somewhat of a factor, but it's all kind of based around the adventure system and how well adventurers work together to achieve a common goal. Any bonds formed from that, if any, are really just treated is a side thing. And I'm not gonna lie, I definitely dig this more practical take on the guild concept. I mean, don't get me wrong, I got nothing wrong with fairy tale and the bonds of friends and family thing, but as you grow older, the more cynical you do become, and that includes with how you approach friendship, particularly keeping your kind of tight knit group of friends together, or attempting to do so, or pretty much over making new ones. So I do kind of jive more with this take on the concept, as it just feels more real and grounded, despite still taking place in a heightened fantasy world. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, on Twitter, AnyList, Crunchyroll, and be sure to hit the like button, the notification bell, and yeah, Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.